When you allow yourself to be jealous and envious of others, it destroys you before you realize it. Some friends are so heartless that they are willing to go the extra miles to destroy you even though you did them no wrong. Dan has done everything within his powers to bring down AGK to zero. Unfortunately, this is the end for Dan. What happened to the money? We will find out on this episode. Remember, after what happened on the last episode, that Dan poisoned Choma. Choma got to the house and was bleeding. I wonder what would have happened to Choma. But on this episode, it all started when they were all expecting the call from the kidnappers. That was not forthcoming. They began to wonder if Dan decided to run away with the money. Remember, they just made a discovery of how Dan was part of the marksmen that were coming to deal with Chinwe, AGK's sister. But however, while they were contemplating, the call eventually came in. And Munachi picked the call and asked, "Where is my husband?" But it seems as though Dan actually ran away with the money. Because the kidnappers told Munachi that since she has decided to deceive them, instead of sending the money so that they can release the husband, that now they are going to kill the husband. And Munachi was like, but my husband friend Dan is coming with the money. We gave him the money. He's supposed to bring the money to you people. We already know that Dan will run away with the money because Dan is the mastermind behind everything that is happening. How were you even expecting that Dan will go to the kidnappers and deliver that money when he is jealous of AGK? Andy should have known that Dan will run away with this money because he once made a confession to Andy that he was jealous of AGK. But however, what is Munachi going to do that Dan has decided to run away with the money? She's just crying and everybody is wondering what will happen to AGK. Because AGK's life is at stake right now. I just pray that something bad will not happen to AGK just for the sake of Munachi, who has sacrificed a lot for this marriage. We all know how much Munachi loves AGK. But however, AGK is still suffering in the hands of the kidnappers. And eventually they started telling AGK that they are going to kill him because he has refused to bring the money. But AGK told them that Munachi cannot lie. That if Munachi said they have given Dan the money, then Dan is supposed to bring the money, except there is a mix-up somewhere. AGK know that Munachi cannot lie. Then why have you not believed Munachi all this while? You decided to choose Dan over your own wife. This is where trusting Dan has brought you. But then, one of the kidnappers decided to put a call through to Dan to know what is happening and why he's delaying on bringing the money to them. But then, Dan was no longer picking, which sends only one signal to them, that Dan has decided to run away with this money. Surprisingly, Dan is on his way to the airport to travel out of the country with the money. 100 million naira. This Dan has no heart. In fact, he has no emotions. How can you be this wicked to your one friend? The one friend that has been supportive to Dan. AGK has supported Dan ever since. Anything Dan wants, AGK is willing to do for him. But he decided to stab AGK by doing this evil to him. While he was on his way to the airport, he was making a phone call that the hotel he slept last night was not good enough, that he's on his way to the airport. But then Dan does not know that something bad will also happen to him, because if you point your finger against someone, the other ones responds to you. So Dan cannot be free. The good that AGK has done to Dan will not be overlooked. God will surely do something that will make Dan to regret his action. But while he was going, he also made mention of Choma, the wife, that he has decided to poison, that Choma should rest in peace. I wonder what Choma did to Dan that led to him poisoning Choma, because Choma has always been a submissive wife to Dan. But then Munachi is still crying and wondering what will become of her. She just lost her child and now her husband is going to die. 100 million naira has been taken away. Dan decided to steal from his own friends, the people that actually trusted him with the money to go and bring back AGK. But there is one thing that Munachi's mother said. Dan has done his own, God will do his own. That Munachi should not worry, that God will not disappoint them. It seems as though Munachi's mother has also seen what will happen to Dan, just the way she saw what will happen to AGK. But Munachi cannot help it. She's just crying and crying. But then Andy says something, that he is going to make sure that Dan pays with his life. That Dan cannot steal from them and go away with it. That he wants to see Dan. He needs to make sure that Dan will take it hot from him after what Dan did to Chinwe. Remember that Andy is somehow falling in love with Chinwe. Coming to discover that Dan has done this to Chinwe, Andy has decided to fight Dan with the whole of his strength to make sure that Dan will receive it hot. But then what will happen? Everybody at this point is helpless. Rita is helpless. Munachi is helpless. Everybody is just helpless. They were just hoping that somehow God will vindicate Ejike or probably bring Ejike back. The kidnappers eventually brought in Dan. The question is, who gave them the intel that Dan is about to run to another country? Because Dan was on his way to the airport. How did they come to discover that Dan is running away or want to double cross them by stealing the money without giving them their own share? But when they brought in Dan, Dan was already bruised. And Ejike was like, why did you guys have to beat him up like that? He was just coming to bring the money to you people and you decided to beat him up. What's your problem? That Dan is not a bad person. Why did you do this to him? But the kidnappers went ahead to explain to Ejike that this Dan wanted to run away with that money without giving them their own share. And Ejike was confused at this point. He was not even expecting Dan to do this to him because Dan is the one friend that he trusts with his life. Everything Dan told Ejike to do, Ejike has always done it. And he was like, I don't understand. What do you mean? The kidnappers went ahead to explain. The kidnappers explained that Dan made arrangement for them to kidnap Ejike and demand for 100 million so that he can take 40 million while they share the remaining 60 million. And Ejike was like, Dan asked you to kidnap me? This is what happened when you trust the wrong person. It's now that Ejike's eyes are now open to see who Dan truly is. All this while, Ejike has been trusting the wrong person. He couldn't believe his ears. But then Ejike asked Dan, is what they are saying true? And Dan told Ejike, are you sure that you are ready to hear the truth? Dan, this is where jealousy has brought you into. He went ahead to explain to Ejike that Ejike is everything that he has ever dreamt of becoming in this life. That Ejike has money and he has love. But his parents abandoned him and he does not even have money. And Ejike was like, since I met you as my friend, I have always supported you. I have not treated you bad. That he has money and he has been sending you on errands as if he's his boy or something. All because he has money more than him. And Ejike was surprised. What Dan is explaining to him is not even true. But Dan went ahead to tell Ejike that since Ejike has everything, he has decided to also take everything from Ejike because he cannot afford to be lonely and Ejike will be enjoying himself and his money. That he made him to have problem with the parent. He also made him, in fact, the warehouse that got burnt, he was behind everything. And the fake people that came to do business with Ejike, he was also behind everything. As well as the kidnapping, that he wants to make sure that every Ejike come down to zero. And Ejike was like, so Dan, you are the one behind all this that is been happening to me. But Dan went ahead to tell Ejike, did I force you? I only told you do this. And you went ahead to do it. Did I force you? Munachi warned Ejike about Dan. Even Munachi's mom and Dan, everybody warned Ejike about Dan. That Dan has bad intention towards Ejike. But Ejike could not listen. He believed that Dan is the best friend that he has. Now look at what Dan has done to you. Not only has Dan kidnapped you, he has also ruined your life. He has made everybody to see you as a bad person. Even with your money, now you are lonely. Not only that, you will get home and discover that you have also lost your house because your house was sold for them to be able to raise the 100 million naira that Dan is supposed to take a share of 40 million naira to run away to another country. This is the kind of friend that you have. So Dan was just laughing at Ejike that this is the end for Ejike and him. That even if he dies today, Ejike will remain lonely. But then Dan did something that is very shocking. He went ahead to struggle the gun from the other kidnappers and the kidnappers eventually shot him dead. I wanted Dan to have suffered a little, at least go to jail and suffer for killing Choma and everything that he has done to Ejike. But it's so unfortunate that he has to end like this. Now the question is, what is going to happen to Ejike? Will the kidnappers kill Ejike now that Ejike has seen their face? Or are they going to let Ejike go to meet his family when they have received the money? Or are they eventually going to share the money with Ejike and give him some parts so that he can go back and start his life afresh? We will get to find out on the next episode. Please, if you have not liked the video, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. I will bring the next episode as soon as it drops. But for now, take care.